It's pretty bright. Yeah. Yeah, just natural light and faith. So first order of business and the most important order of business is I got engaged. So, hey, thank you. Very excited. I'm going on vacation in two days to Mexico, so I'm also very excited about that.
Wow.
All right. And then the less gardening stuff. Okay, so we will be doing our row cover and hoop and garlic pickup probably later this month. We have all the stuff, we just need the space in the office to get it all going. So it's a little chaotic right now, but I will send out a date for that once we know. This is our last official workshop of the season, so very exciting. Good job, everybody, for coming. We will be having an end of year potluck. So that will be Monday, October 2nd, and it'll be here at the Memorial Park Community Center.
We're gonna confirm that it's in.
Yeah, we're gonna confirm that it's in the right room. No, but I will send that out once I know what room we're gonna be in. And yeah, so that'll be fun. So that'll be probably the same time, 6 to 7:30-ish. And basically everyone's invited to bring a dish, and then we will eat together, and potentially if garlic is happening at that point, they haven't given us a notification of when it's being sent yet. So depending, it might be at the row cover pickup, it might be at the potluck where we get out the garlic. So please come. I will send out an RSVP as well as a sign up sheet for like dishes to bring, so we don't have like all brownies or something.
Tomatoes,
just all tomatoes. Yeah. So yeah, but that's a lot of fun, and I really encourage you all to come out. It's a great way to kind of bond with your fellow gardeners, kind of celebrate the year, talk about all fun things. So yes, and then we will also be sending out our end of year survey. So this is super important for us because we depend on your feedback to continue getting grant money for this program, which funds all the wonderful things you get and all the education and Lexi and my staff time and stuff like that. So when I send that out, please fill it out. And it's also a really great way for us to improve the program for future years. We're always learning and improving. So thank you. We also have our Winter Field School Business Intensive registration that has opened. And this is if you are interested in going into farming and learning kind of the business side of farming. We've got 8 classes November through March. It's every second and fourth Thursday of the month. And we go over everything from like marketing, farm infrastructure, business planning, write a business plan throughout the course, sustainable production planning, all the things. A few people have been through it and Build It Up, and I just highly recommend it. So I will send out an email just for Build It Up gardeners if you want to sign up. This year we are going to be opening up our returning gardener application earlier. So I will be sending that out in November, just so that we can kind of get people onboarded before the first of the year. And we can kind of start that planning process and get you guys ordering plants and things like that, so that we can kind of better estimate the amounts we need and things like that, because we do most of our ordering in January. So we're going to try and have everyone in place before that. And then the new gardener application. So if you have friends or you have family members or you have neighbors or someone in your church group or whatever that you think might be interested in joining the program, our new gardener application will open in January to those people. Again, you will get all that information. You can forward it to them, share it with them, whatever. But that's a little bit of the FYI for the next couple months. And yeah. Can you think of anything else, Lexi? Okay. Lexi's going to talk about season extension and sweet potato harvesting and garlic. So fun stuff.
Right, season extension, it's basically, and this is gonna build off of what we talked about last class, but we're keeping things alive beyond their normal growing season. It's basically it. It can be things like using protection like row cover and mulch, choosing the right varieties, which we talked more about last class. And just some plain good luck, some years, I mean, when it gets down to zero, like it did this past year, there's nothing much you can do. But it doesn't usually do that, right? So that's what we're dealing with. And then we kind of need an understanding with season extension, what exactly we're protecting the plants from. So there are a series of adverse conditions in the winter, and I think a lot of people are familiar with the freezing temperatures, right? It's cold. However, it's really the wind that causes the most death of our plants, because it's not just that they freeze, it's actually the wind coming in, the airflow around the plants that's causing them to desiccate, the cells dry out, and the plant dies. So this cloth is not really to protect the plants from freezing, because you're planting varieties that are frost tolerant. So the plant actually does freeze, but this is protecting it from drying out in the wind. And that's what's keeping it alive. So that when it thaws out, that pops back up to life, hasn't lost all its water. And then the other risk in the winter is the ground freezing unevenly, and that causes frost heaves. And so that can actually separate the plant from its roots. If the ground freezes, if the top part of the ground freezes faster than the bottom, the lower layers of the ground, it will separate the plant. So we're trying to mitigate and protect against, these things. And then in East Tennessee, one of the things we're dealing with is temperature swings. And so not only trying to prevent your plants from getting too cold or drying out, but you have to be aware of when it gets too hot, because if they're under this cover, when it gets into the 50s or 60s, you may burn plants. So we're going to talk about all of this, but this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about season extension. I know we have a lot of folks who maybe this is their only first or second year in East Tennessee. So what are we dealing with winter-wise? Often it's very mild. It's usually wet, fall, and winter with periodic light frosts going in November, December. So it'll get, maybe down, 30, 31, might get to the high 20s. We usually don't deal with very, very cold temperatures November and December, right? Sometimes in December it is 65. You're in short, playing tennis, whatever. Or pickleball, I guess these days.
If you're playing pickleball.
Yeah, sometimes it's cold, a lot of times it's warm. It's kind of, I've definitely kept peppers alive and other summer crops into December some years. Just depends on what we're dealing with that winter. It is generally cold in January, February. It's generally our two coldest months. And we might get one or two major cold events like we saw last year where it gets below 15 degrees. Not always though, some winters are very mild. Definitely expect wild temperature swings. It might be 70 and sunny one day, and then 20 and snowstorm, the next day. That's what we kind of see. In the spring, you're really looking at probably 3 or 4 frost events. Around here, they like to refer to them by what's flowering. So we see redbud, dogwood, blackberry. Some people have more names going on, but those are really getting into, March, April, May. You're usually seeing 1 or 2 frost events a month. So just because it is 70 in March, at the beginning of March, doesn't mean that you're not going to see 10, 15 degree weather in March. So it's kind of a wild ride. And that's why certain things like peaches, plums, cherries are really hard to grow around here, because it gets really hot. In February, the trees burst into flowers, it freezes, the flowers die, fall off, you don't get any fruit. So if you are looking, especially at fruit trees, you want varieties with long dormancy periods. And so you can kind of look up varieties by their cold freeze hours. It's got a name. I'm blanking on it because I didn't think about it until just a moment in time. But you can look up dormancy periods on like apples, peaches, that sort of thing. And you want something that's going to go to 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,400 freeze hours. And that will mean it'll stay dormant longer. And so you'll have a better chance of it actually getting warm and staying warm and flowers falling off.
Can you repeat those numbers for the chill hours?
With peaches, you wanna look for a variety that's over like 1,000 hours. And that's probably about as long as it gets for a peach, but with apples, you can find things that are like 1,200, 1,400 hours. With that. Yeah, longer the better here, just because you really want to get through March before they even attempt to flower. And sometimes those temperature swings are so enticing, the trees go to flower anyway, but that's just fruit trees. So season extension, we're looking at a few fairly low cost technologies. We'll talk about a few more expensive technologies for season extension, but we'll stick to mainly what gardeners are seeing, and we'll touch on a couple of farmer or market gardener stuff in just a minute. But row cover is probably our main one. We hand out I think RowGuard 34, but it's pretty similar to the Agribon 30. You can get it to 1 ounce weight fabric, and they're usually sold by weight. So anything less than 1 ounce probably isn't going to provide much frost protection. You can buy heavier fabrics, but you will get more frost protection out of it. But it's also it's going to be a thicker cloth, which means it gets less sunlight going into your plant. So this generally means that it cuts off about 30% of the sunlight going to the plant.
Can we use like the 1 ounce fabric and then you just really pull the second one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So the higher the grade, more protection, but again, less sunlight getting to your plant. So it's kind of a balance, especially in the winter when there's less sunlight anyway. That's what you're looking at. So yeah, the 1 ounce fabric offers 2 to 4 degrees of frost protection. So that means, normally like your peppers, for instance, would die at 32 degrees, but you might be able to get temperatures down to 30 before they die. So that gives you a little bit of protection on these really light frosts, especially in October, November. If you're really interested in keeping some of your plants alive.
I put it in driving mode on accident. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely had peppers through Thanksgiving and early December some years. But again, that was probably a pretty lucky year for me. But yeah, so you can kind of see for summer stuff, want to keep change it.
Right on.
We'll have to talk about how to build them, because we're getting out of this too. Yeah. So for fall and winter crops that are definitely frost tolerant, the row cover will keep them alive for most of the winter. Generally, a lot of the stuff is going to die if it gets below 10 degrees anyway. That's pretty extreme for around here. And then, you could double up on the fabric, double or triple on the fabric, and you'll have a chance of keeping stuff from really dying when it gets that low. And again, it's this drying out to the wind that's really going to kill the plants when they freeze. So it's that desiccation that it's trying to prevent. And then so it provides a protective barrier. It keeps the air temps a little bit warmer than what's outside of it, but it's not trying to keep it from freezing. And then our biggest problem around here, if you're up in like Maine or something, you probably leave the plastic for the cover on for the whole winter and not worry about it. But here, with our wild temperature swings, if it gets above 45 degrees, you really want to take the covers off the plants. Otherwise, you'll fry. Because especially with plastic, and it's a little less with the fabric, but with plastic, definitely you're getting that greenhouse effect where it's just trapping heat under it. And so, if you're getting up much above 45 degrees, it could be in the 80s, 90s under there, under the plastic, and really that you're going to fry them. So that's probably one of our biggest risks here in East Tennessee is it getting too hot under the plants. So you really have to watch the weather forecast every day when it's going to be warmer. I don't think strawberries need to be covered. They go dormant anyway, so you're not trying to grow them or harvest them in the winter. So they can. I would say if we're gonna get a really big cold freeze like we did this past year, where it's gonna get down to 0, I would probably protect the plants as best you can with some kind of covering. But I think under normal conditions, I wouldn't worry about them. Is there anything else? Okay. So like I mentioned, frost heaving. Again, where the ground, you can kind of see the diagram, the ground is freezing at different rates, and so it actually is separating. And so you might notice that in your yard, where there's kind of lumps in the soil after a frost, and that's just the ground is kind of separating unevenly. So on top of using the cover, also mulching heavily with straw or shredded leaves or whatever you've got can help. I mean, you know, mulch is always a good idea, but especially in the winter, it can help provide some protection against frost heaving. And it basically keeps the ground, it helps the ground freeze slower and thaw slower too, so that it's not, you're not getting that sudden movement. Yeah. So we're providing fabric. You can certainly buy plastic if that's something of interest. And certainly if you have a larger structure, you're gonna have plastic over it. You can't really skip on this. You need the 6 mil greenhouse grade plastic. Otherwise it's gonna degrade pretty quickly in the sun. If you treat it well, if you take it in the summer, you should get 2 or 3 years out of it, unless something happens, like a big snow event or a big wind event causes it to rip or something. Again, plastic traps more heat than fabric does, so you really need to pay attention to the weather forecast. I mean, I would get to it if it's going to get about 40, definitely about 45 degrees. And with plastic, the fabric will allow water into your plants if it's going to rain. Plastic will not, so you know, plants need less water in the winter, but if it's covered for long periods of time with plastic, you should figure out some way to get a little water to them. Speaking of. Okay. Fabric costs a little less. It's also free from this program. Again, you can more easily double up fabric than you can plastic, and fabric will probably last a little longer. I think it's easier to work with. I prefer fabric for around here for the low tunnels. If you're going to be dealing with a larger structure, you will need plastic. Hoops, we are giving out wire hoops. There's galvanized wire hoops. They're pretty great for short crops, lettuce, spinach, root veg, baby greens. Sometimes kale, broccoli, collards can be a little too tall for the hoops we're giving out. And this, so keep that in mind. And I'll talk about a few other alternatives. The cloth that we're providing is 7 feet wide, and it fits the wire hoops. So if you're going to go for a different hoop option, which I will discuss, you will also probably will need to buy a 10-foot wide piece of fabric to go with it. The wire hoops can get bent if we have a lot of snow, which can be a problem. But it also doesn't snow too much here. We get occasional larger snow events, but it's fairly rare. If you are concerned, if you want something a little sturdier, you can make it out of rebar, stick the rebar in the ground, and you can just run 10-foot PVC pipes. Yeah, half-inch PVC pipes over it. Pretty sturdy. They're nice because they're somewhat flexible, so if there is snow on them, they will bend to a certain point. If it's really heavy, they'll probably crack too. But you do get a little more flexibility out of them.
How much height will that give you?
Probably about 4 feet. Yeah.
How wide is it?
There is some flexibility to that. I bet you could probably stretch it between 4 and 6 feet. So it'll be shorter if you've got a 6-foot width, and it'll be a little taller if you have a 4-foot spread. But the 10-foot pole would cover that kind of spread. I would imagine it would be a little less sturdy at the 6-foot spacing too. You will need also clamps to keep the row cover on the PVC. Whereas with our shorter hoops, you can kind of keep it secured to the ground. I'll talk a little bit about how to construct them in a second, but just keep in mind, and they sell, if you look on like Johnny's, or some of these other specialized growing websites, you'll be able to find clamps that fit the PVC. It's more expensive, obviously, than the wire hoops. But possibly worth the investment, especially if you are more of a market grower, and want kind of a larger scale thing. And then, you know, these things are pretty sturdy. They're gonna last a few years, so you know, your investment is gonna be over a few years. Your most sturdy option is to use EMT conduit, which is metal. It's very expensive, but these are basically gonna last forever, once you go through it. We have a hoop bender somewhere. Which if you're really interested, we can connect you with the hoop bender and you can, and show you how to bend that EMT. And again, this one only does a 4-foot wide hoop. You can buy one that does 6-foot wide hoops, but that's it's a separate little jig. I know Chris at Possum Bottom has made his own little hoop bender jig, so you can get instructions online for how to make a little pipe bending thing if you're really feeling frisky. Do it yourself. So, and I know conduit has gone up way in price. So it's probably a really expensive option at this point. And again, you'll need to purchase that 10-foot wide cloth to go over it. Mice, well, this is old, so I don't know if Mice still carries this, but definitely you can order it online. Johnny's Slip Seeds has it, has the cloth that fits this. And they also sell these jigs too.
There's some place that Possum Bottom uses, it's not marketing it. Maybe it's all stuff.
Wolf Farm. I don't think they have cloth, but maybe they,
They have Protect Net.
I
They
got
have also
Possum
cloth.
Lotus. They have a breed from your actions.
Lotus.
But anyways, I remember that in that workshop that at Possum Bottom, I remember, that place seemed to get, you got everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I would, yeah. I think Lotus concentrates more in hydroponics, but I know they do carry more stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I would say Wolf Farm is more specialized towards this type of growth. But I know they both distribute for Seven Springs with probably a similar selection of stuff that they can get for you. Yeah.
There's one more way that I made the hoops, you use the PVC, but get 1/2-inch PVC and then you get 1-inch PVC, you cut the 1-inch PVC, you put that in there.
Okay.
And then you put it. That's really.
Yeah. Good idea. She's talking about using 1-inch PVC instead of rebar to kind of set the 1/2-inch PVC into it. So yeah, and there's loads of ideas online for making tunnels for home gardens. I would set the hoops about 4 feet apart, probably a good number. And then you want to make sure when you're cutting the cloth to fit your rows that you give an extra 6 to 10 feet on both sides. Just to make sure that you're able to secure the ends of the tunnels. You don't want them open to the cold air. You will need heavy blunt objects. Anything sharp may run the risk of cutting the fabric. So T-posts can work, bricks, sandbags, things like that. A few people bags of rocks. Anything to basically hold the cloth down over the hoops. The tighter you pull the cloth and plastic, the more resistant to snow damage it can be, and the more wind damage too. Definitely, like I said, lots of tutorials and stuff online how to build these things. I think I've done videos, so there may be something on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If not, we can probably do it this one. Again, lots of different ideas you can see on raised beds, you know, this PVC with, and that's the metal bars, that kind of thing. This sandbags, you can see holding it down. People are using various objects to keep them clamped. This looks like it's tied down actually. With some sort of something. I stole all these off the internet. These are not mine.
Winter or raised beds or, in the winter or raised beds or rain beds?
I would say raised beds would probably stay a little warmer. They probably, but they may also freeze a little harder too. But they'll warm up faster inside. So. I've definitely kept things alive in raised beds this time. For the winter, so. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I guess that was, sorry, just another, this is more of a 6 foot wide hoop, you can kind of see on these, it's covered in 2 beds.
Sorry, do you usually run something across the top like that one or not?
You don't have to. I've definitely in like a low or in a high tunnel sort of situation, you need a bar over the top.
Yeah.
And so that may be, if they have more snow or they have more wind, so that may be more of a precaution for that, but I wouldn't worry too much about it here. Okay. So if you are a farmer or a market gardener, or are just very serious about all of this, you can get high tunnels from the NRCS. You will need to have a farm number on your property. And that sounds serious, but you can basically designate your backyard as a farm, get a farm number. You just, I think it's like 400 square feet of growing space. It's like 1/100th of an acre, which is like 400 square feet. So,
They also fund Caterpillar tunnels.
and yeah, I've got that on the next slide. So they didn't originally, this was what they funded. They have a new program now where they fund Caterpillar tunnels, stuff like that in a second. But if you're a beginning farmer, and that just means that you have filed your farm taxes for less than 10 years. So if that's 0 years, then you're a beginning farmer. And the cost share program will pay 90% of the cost of installing or setting of the equipment, not necessarily install. If you have to do any site work or anything, that's not covered by it. And they have a flat rate basically that they pay per square foot. So you can get a smaller one of these. This is probably a 32 by 100 or something close to that. Probably one of the max. That's about the max size that they'll fund. And you can see even that he's got these low tunnels inside the structure. So every time you cover a plant, you're getting about a 1 zone difference. So if we're in zone 6 or zone 7, you know, we go to a zone up to 7 or 8. If you put 2 covers up, you're getting quite tropical even in there in terms of what the temperature is down at base. So if you want one, call your NRCS office and get started. So they also, this is very recent, I think just last year they started doing this. They actually are covering Caterpillar tunnels now, which is, so the problem with a high tunnel is that it has to be concreted in. And so, especially with urban agriculture, zoning laws may only allow you to have a certain number of buildings on your property. And a building is anything really that's concrete. So the zoning law sees your high tunnel as a building because it's permanent. Whereas the Caterpillar tunnels do not rely on concrete, they're not technically permanent. So the NRCS now has a new program to deal with Caterpillar tunnels, which are smaller. So whereas a high tunnel may be about 5 rows of planting rows, this is probably going to cover about 3. High tunnel might be 15, 20 feet tall. This is probably 8 to 10 feet tall. So it's a smaller structure. There's definitely loads of tutorials on the internet on how to just do it, bootstrap it with PVC plastic. But they also have these programs now for the internet. They have a cost share program through NRCS that can help pay for that. I should also mention with these cost share programs, you have to put out the money and build the thing first, and then they'll reimburse. So there is that consideration. That's just something to keep in mind. They're less sturdy, but they're cheaper to build. They are easier to move around. You should be able to walk under it. It'll cover probably 3 rows. And again, you can combine with low tunnels for even more protection.
And when we did our last pickup at Rain Pro, they had Caterpillar tunnels on their property, and also a greenhouse, but mainly they grow in Caterpillar tunnels, and it's been very sufficient for them. And they are in the process of moving farms right now, and they're able to move their Caterpillar tunnels to their other property, whereas a high tunnel, that would be very difficult.
Yeah. And they ran into that zone.
Yeah, the zoning issue
Yeah.
within city limits.
Yeah, they could put the height, but these were fine.
Yeah.
The program let you do both, like you did Caterpillar tunnels for starters and then realized you need the high tunnel with the NRCS.
Yeah.
Would you
And-
follow up with another grant?
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
get
you can apply every
unlimited
year for-
NRCS.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think they
wow.
only fund you one a year, but.
Yeah. But like
every year.
Chris has maybe like 3 or 4 consecutive years of NRCS funding.
Yeah, you just apply every year, and they have hundreds of programs. So if you have a piece of property, if you have a farm property, if you have wooded property, I mean, they have just hundreds of programs, farmers for conservation, they do cut across pollinator stuff. You know, if you have a stream, that's the bank is kind of degrading, they've got stream bed stuff.
You do kind of have to show a need
Yeah,
for it in some capacity. So depending on what you're
Yeah.
looking to get funded, you have to show that, hey, this is a problem that I need fixing.
yeah, with this, you would have to actually have a garden, you have to be growing something.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah, and then they could do it, you couldn't just say, I want to grow things here. You have to put the garden in first and then you cover it. But then definitely, the first thing to do would be to call your county, every county has an NRCS agent, call your office, and they'll come out and do a farm resource plan for you. And if you don't have a farm
It's
number,
free.
it's free, yeah, if you don't have a farm number, they can help you get set up.
And what is NRCS?
National resource.
Natural
Natural resource.
resources conservation.
Yes.
Yeah. Dana really drove that into me.
Yeah. Any questions on the online people? We're very pro high tunnel.
Yeah. Caterpillar tunnel.
Definitely,
elephants,
definitely.
little tunnels. all
It's
tunnels,
your tax
really.
dollars at work, so we highly
Right?
encourage folks to use it.
Yeah.
I've never read these. Are they gonna need to be covered or are they gonna be long gone? Right.
They probably, if it, yeah, they'll probably, they're usually fall producing. So they should hopefully produce before it gets too cold. They will probably die when it gets below like 5 degrees. So they're not particularly, they're tolerant, but not particularly hardy to freezers.
So what types of things are they? Just like all the stuff you guys do now? Or
Greens,
Can you repeat the question?
what about like carrots or?
carrots are fairly are hardy. Again, you want to protect against the frost heaving.
Or
It's probably best to just Google lists of frost hardy plant, and they'll give more specifics. Most root veg, if it's a fall or winter root veg, it's probably fairly tolerant or hardy. I would cover again, if it's gonna get below like 20. And a lot of fall, winter greens are pretty hardy too. I don't know that anything would kill collards, it can get pretty cold and they'll
Yeah.
go.
Carrots are pretty good too.
Carrots are pretty good. Beets probably not so much. Certainly alliums, onions, and leeks and that kind of thing are pretty common.
I'll try to group things according to what might, to be covered, I guess. like,
Yeah.
Instead of having things all spread out, I don't know.
You can just email me what you've got. And that's probably easier than me trying to like with the list on top. Yeah, but I'm happy to like look at. Get suggestions. Yeah.
See, like, put your wire hoops up at the beginning of winter and then just wait until you think it's gonna be full
Yeah.
and then you put your fabric on.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Do you have a question? Anything else?
Any questions?
Yeah, Four Season Harvest by Elliot Coleman is a great one. That's probably the winter growing Bible. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that anyone has really said it any better than Elliot Coleman, so, yeah. Garlic, and Elliot Coleman's up in Maine, so he knows a thing or two about winter. Or Vermont, one of those two states. Okay, so garlic, we're moving on. garlic is one of my favorite things to grow. You just pop it in the ground in the winter and harvest it in July, and there's not too much in between that you need to worry about. It is best to plant garlic in October. If life happens and it takes you a minute to get it in, I have definitely planted it as early as, or as late as early December, and it's been fine. We love garlic. It's fine. But, and if you get it in October, you wanna mulch it super well, you may even see the little green start popping up, it'll grow. They're fine. What you're worried about garlic is the frost heat, that's what you're really trying to protect against. That frost heat will separate the plant from the roots and it'll die. It's probably about the only thing you need to worry about. With garlic, I get this question a lot. We buy certified disease-free seed garlic. It's been tested to make sure that it has no diseases. If you are if you're saving garlic from the previous year, if you are purchasing garlic at the grocery store, yes, technically it will probably grow, and it may be just fine. But you run the risk of it having picked up a disease from the soil, and it may just spread to the whole crop, and you may not get any. That's kind of the issue with using grocery store garlic or saved garlic. And that's part of the reason why seed garlic that you purchase is so expensive. It's not through all that. Your garlic will come in heads. You will need to take it apart into individual cloves. Don't peel them, leave them in the wrapper. You want to inspect each clove, make sure it doesn't have any weird spots or has any softness to it. You want nice, hard, spot-free cloves. Discard anything that looks suspicious. If you are, especially if you're using saved garlic and you want to replant it, you can soak it in a gallon of water with a teaspoon of baking soda solution, soak that overnight. And then you can dunk each clove into some isopropyl alcohol before you plant it. That will hopefully knock back any disease that you may have on it. I wouldn't worry about this with the stuff that we're in, for instance. But if you are trying to use some other type of garlic, you may want to go through that extra step.
It's an excellent picture of how you should plant your garlic.
Yes, and I will talk about this second, but you want to put it the flat side of the garlic down and the pointy side up when you're planting. I imagine it'll still grow, it'll just kind of have to loop around itself. Garlic needs 4 to 6 inches apart. I like to go through and prep the bed with compost and then go through and just kind of make the holes. And you want it pretty deep. You want to go down 2 to 3 inches deep with those holes. So again, place the clove in, pointy side up, flat side down, and then gently pat the soil down over the holes. I like using a garden rake to do that. We're gonna do the next slide, and then mulch it really good. 6 inches of mulch, whatever you've got. You don't need to worry about row cover, but the mulch will help insulate the soil and hopefully prevent your ground heaving. I've never had issues with ground heaving on mulch cover, so.
An emphasis on 6 inches. I mean, that's like a significant amount of.
It's a good amount, and like garlic survived that 0-degree weather we had
Yeah.
just fine. So I mean, it really, I don't know what would kill it, but
I grew it in New York and we had like pines before.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just happy down there. Party. Is there a question or anything? No. They are
You cannot
They-
grow
they are
potatoes or sweet potatoes.
they are
undercover.
tropical little creatures, and they will not tolerate
Any type of.
any amount of plants, yeah.
And we'll-
Essentially. Do you mulch? I would definitely mulch immediately after planting, otherwise it may just get away from you. I'd be ready to mulch when you're planting, otherwise, life happens. You get to it.
They'll still be able to grow out of it. It won't disrupt like
Yeah.
their sunlight or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's fine.
Keep it weed in the spring, although if you have a good bit of mulch, hopefully it won't be too much. We are giving out a hardneck variety of garlic. There are several variety types of garlic. Softneck are usually the ones in the store, and they're the ones that you typically see braided. It's harder to braid hardneck garlic, although I think some people do try it, but the benefit of hardneck is that it produces a scape, which is a flower bud, usually around June. And those are, you wanna cut those off when they pop, when they start to curl, you wanna get them cut. And, they are great to eat. I like to put them in omelets. They make great pesto. It's just kind of a nice little garlicky thing to add to everything.
They'll come out of the plant straight and then they'll curl and then they'll straighten back out. So you want to cut them when they're curled visibly. If they straighten back out, you still want to cut them off because that'll help the bulb to develop, but it'll be tougher. The scape itself will be tougher and not as fun to eat.
Right. And you're basically trying to keep the plant from putting any energy into that flower scape head sort of thing. So usually it's a good, once the scapes appear, usually you've got about 2 weeks before they're ready to harvest. We'll talk more about it next year. And then if you cure it, and we talk more about that, you know, at the time it happens, you usually get 4 to 6 months out of it.
You can also look at like the, I'm not going into this crazy, but like some of the papery parts of the stalk, like the, what is it, like 2 to 3 leaves die off.
You went, yeah, 5 or 6.
Or 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can look for that. You can also Google it.
Yeah, I mean, we send out emails about it, so. Any questions? I think this is.
Can you go back a couple slides to the plan for? I was gonna catch in the comments.
Oh, sorry.
Previous law. There we go, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 to 3 inches deep, pointy side up.
So if soft neck garlic is what you usually find in the grocery stores, like why do we do hard neck? What's the difference?
I think I feel like it's more hardy. It deals with winter better. Soft neck is typically more of a California crop. I think you can still grow it, but might be a little more selective about your varieties and just research for older hardy ones.
How many can we order from you guys? Go with the ranges.
So we typically give out like a ½ pound each, but I think this year we may have a little bit more, but we'll want to make sure that everyone can get, you know, a certain amount each. And then if we have extra, we'll email, see who wants what.
Do you remember what variety it is?
It's German extra hardy is the variety. I think it's like a red skinned one. Potentially. Yeah. I don't know. Don't quote me. I ordered it like 3 months ago.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have to rotate it like other crops or can
Yeah.
it just grow the same
No,
spot?
you don't want to grow in the same spot. Garlic definitely is prone to disease, soil diseases too, which are hard to get out of your soil. I don't remember what it was, but I definitely had a massive garlic crop failure one year, and that was definitely a soil issue, and you gotta stay away from that. Probably for like 10, 20 years. Probably would not try to go back and do it
Yeah.
again if you have a crop failure like that.
20 years.
I mean, it's anything that's in the soil is, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's hanging around. It's basically not in that area.
I will say also with like some soft neck varieties versus hard neck varieties. So like the hard neck varieties produce bigger cloves. So you might get like 4 or 5 big cloves or 5 or 6 big cloves, whereas soft neck tends to be a lot smaller cloves. Which like personally for me, when I'm making something with garlic, I do not want to unpeel like 12 tiny cloves. I would rather unpeel like 2 massive cloves. So that's why I like hard neck as well.
I'll rate up, damp soil, like on one spot, and tends to be wet.
I would avoid that spot. This is, I feel like it's prone to rotting,
Yeah.
and I would keep it out of damp. I would put it in somewhere that's better during well during. Yeah.
I wouldn't say the taste is super different. It kind of just depends on like the variety that you get. I mean, I don't notice it a lot.
So soft neck is typically what you're buying in the grocery stores. You know what that tastes like. Hard neck is maybe a little like spicier,
Spicier.
garlic-ier,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a little more robust. Yeah, but I wouldn't
Why don't you see it in the stores?
I don't think it stores as well as soft neck garlic in like a commercial sense. But I think like for me, we grew, I think it was German red a couple years ago, and mine stored for like 8 months. Like, I mean, I had it for a long time before it like kind of started rotting. So it still has a really long shelf life, if you're storing it. And, the one that we grew last year was, I think, Music, which is a very popular variety. A lot of people like it. And I will say, like, we were happy with it. We like to experiment with varieties, so we change it up. But the heads were like the size of my palm. Like, I mean, really big. People kept asking me if I grew elephant garlic, and I was like, nope, this is just hardneck garlic. So, all right.
Sweet taters. September is a good time to harvest sweet potatoes. I usually wait till the end of the month. Sometimes if things happen early October, they will get damaged if it freezes. Even a light frost will kill the plants and will probably damage the tubers. You really want to get them out of the ground before the frost. And people send me questions every year of like, why are all these sweet potatoes so ugly and weird and misshapen? And you know, when you're at the grocery store, you're looking at the grade A, primo crop, and that's probably about 20% of the crop, and the rest of them are sent to like the sweet potato fry factory, right? So you're getting all these like weird shapes. This one was literally the size of my head. It's a good 4.5 pound sweet tater.
It's funny because I didn't recognize it as a potato at first. I thought you were holding a chicken.
Yeah. Sweet potato, I dug up. I had it on the counter for a long time. Pride place. So just, they'll look weird. They're totally edible. It's fine. See, you want to get in there with a garden fork very gently to kind of dig them up. I start usually about a foot from the base. Sometimes you'll hit a sweet potato that far out from the base of the plant. I should say I usually go through and just chop the tops off, right, and get those out. You also, the leaves on the sweet potato are totally edible. You can cook it down like spinach, and there's definitely other cultures that do a lot more with the sweet potato leaves. So if you are missing your spinach, you can start eating them. It won't harm the plants as long as you're not eating all of it. Which at this point in the year you're probably not. It's probably just a sea of sweet potatoes. I usually go through, chop off all the vines down to the base, and then that way you can really see where you're going. Get about a foot away, kind of gently get the fork in there and sort of leverage the soil up so that you get the sweet potatoes out. The vast majority of the tubers will be at the base of the plant. You'll notice that when you get the vines out that sometimes the vines will root. Very occasionally there will be a sweet potato under that, so you can kind of poke around. Most years it's the root just keep going in the ground and there's no sweet potato. But some years, and I don't know what is the difference. Sometimes there's sweet potatoes on there too, so just check. Curing sweet potatoes don't come out of the ground all that sweet. And so they really need a period of a few weeks to sit, cure, and really optimally they want to be in a warm, humid place. However, I've found that just letting them sit for a month or two, they will develop that sweetness at a slower pace. If you are able to, or if you're growing on a commercial scale, curing them, dark location, says 85 degrees and 85% humidity. If you have like a basement bathroom, you can get a heater and get a fire in there. You might be able to knock up the temperature. That probably would get you cured in a week or so. So if you want to give that a try, you can. I generally don't bother. Like I said, I just put them in a crate and usually just leave them in the dining room for 4 or 6 weeks. And start eating them. It's fine,
But don't forget to eat them.
don't forget to eat them. Yeah, they. You know, you'll probably get through to January with them, but don't try to save them till next year. Just eat them. Storing, again, sweet potatoes don't wanna be cold. So they wanna be at room temperature, basically, and they want high humidity, you'll be fine if you can't manage that. Again, don't keep them in cold storage. Yeah, like I said, I leave them in the dining room. And yeah, eat them. Eat your storage crops. Any other questions? Online. Alright, just a few final things. It's a good time to clean out any dead or dying crops, get all the weeds down. Common weeds, lamb's quarters, pigweed, each plant, there's 100,000 seeds. Do not let them go to seed. Whatever you can do to keep them, even if that's just weed whacking them every week, just to keep them down, if that's all the energy you have, that's fine. Don't let them go to seed. If you are not planning on cover cropping, that's fine also. Just make sure it's covered. Lots of shredded leaves or grass clippings or straw or compost or whatever you've got, pile it on, and then stick a tarp over it. At the very least, stick a tarp over it. Just don't leave your soil exposed, and don't let the weeds go to seed. So, cleaning up any plant material, anything in the nightshade family, so that's tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplants. They share a lot of diseases. And those diseases also will transfer from the dead plant material to your soil. So really getting them out of the garden rather than just letting them stay there and rot is great. I prefer to trash or burn things. If you are really into composting, you have a very active compost pile, you are turning it regularly, you are monitoring the temperature of your compost pile, making sure it gets above, I think, 140 degrees, 135, 140 degrees, then you can throw diseased material into the compost pile because it won't kill it. If you're not doing these things, if you just have a pile of rot in your backyard, you're just going to be spreading disease around because it is not going to get to the temperature where it will kill it. I am pro compost. I am not necessarily pro home composting, right? Unless you're really going to manage it.
Sorry, just Zoom is, yeah, it's amazing. Edwin said, I cured sweet potatoes in my attic in a moist tub. Really?
What is your definition of moist?
Chat.
I'll check back in a minute. For that same reason, I don't tend to throw weeds in the compost pile, because you may just be, again, transmitting.
I'm gonna throw away my entire compost pile.
Just rotate it. I mean, if you just want to place for things to rot, fine. I wouldn't necessarily spread it on your garden. I was excited when I moved into my house. There was a compost pile in the back and it looked pretty well rotted down. And so I spread it, I just dug it out and garden, and it was full of cilantro seeds. Oh, and just thousands of cilantro plants. Sort of just horrified at the amount of cilantro that was coming up everywhere. So, in the attic, okay.
The black bin sterilizer.
Okay.
It's like the best conversation of the year. This is my favorite part of Zoom, guys. Thank you. It's amazing.
What else we got? Yeah. Clean, organized. If you're really feeling it, you can go online and find instructions for how to sharpen and oil your tools. Fun times. Most of these things could probably do with a good sharpening. We've had it for a couple of years. Take time to review your garden plan. Now's a good time even to look at your garden plan. Figure out what actually happened, write down your notes. May not remember in 3 months. So I also like to, see if there's any new seed companies or if I didn't get a seed catalog from someone I wanted this year, make sure you signed up for seed catalogs. So it's fun. Oh, sorry. Didn't translate well. All right.
I'd also add that, just to start, also, if you do plan on being in the program again next year, or even if you don't and you're still planning on gardening, to start planning your garden for next year, because winter months are the best time to do that. And at least, in our program, we're going to try and kind of move our timeline up a bit so that, we get your plant orders and seed orders in like December, so we can start ordering like correct amounts. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like exact, but as accurate as you can be. So if you've already kind of started that planning, that'll help the process. So just FYI.
Do you have the varieties listed when we order?
Yeah, we'll probably have those lined up. They'll probably be pretty similar. I feel like we did
Yeah,
ordering for the most part,
Yeah,
unless we can't get something.
yeah. But if we do our ordering earlier, here's crossed.
Yeah, so the sooner we get the orders in, the more likely we are to get what we
And I
want.
think generally like November is when the new seeds hit for the next year.
Yeah.
And then into December. So if you can look on Johnny's, you can look on, we order our seeds from Johnny's, Fedco, Twiley. I think that's mainly the three. But yeah. Oh yeah, I should talk about that too,
Yeah.
but, yeah, are you
Wanna
done
stand
with
up and
this?
talk? Yeah, I'm done. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so let me briefly talk. We do have, so we have kind of revamped our market gardening program. So we are opening the market gardening program up for second and third year gardeners. So if you do want to be in the program for a third year and you're interested in market gardening, so market gardening is basically selling some or all or a partial amount of your crop at a farmer's market or a farm stand or something like that. So generally you're going to be scaling up your production. We're kind of trying to utilize this program as like a stepping stone between gardening or farming or gardening and homesteading or that kind of thing, just to kind of help you potentially make a little bit more money with some of the excess in your garden, or scale up so that you are kind of trying to make money with it. Now making money, it's a whole thing, but not great. But it is a good opportunity for those interested in that, and I will be sending out more information with that. We are going to try and finalize our market gardening application and send that out sometime in November as well. And then also folks that were in the market gardening program this year have another opportunity to participate next year. So you can fill out that form. And I think ideally we may be looking at trying to accept like 5 to 10 people for that. So we are kind of still like trialing it, but we are working on some educational materials for next year and a more concise layout for it. So if you're interested in that, just look for the email. The other thing I wanted to share was our harvest total progress this year. So exciting. So last year we grew 15,000 pounds of food total. This year, at the end of July, we've grown 12,000 pounds of food. Super exciting. And this month, August, I think August totals for pounds, we had grown 9,000 pounds of food in just August, and that's not including pecks. So like, guys, thank you. This is amazing. You guys are doing awesome. So we do have a few more, but I honestly think people are just doing better at getting their harvest totals in this year, which has been really awesome. And And
You have Rachel to hound people now.
yeah, we have Rachel to hound people. I didn't have the capacity last year, so, no, but it is, we have some factors, and I think, people are growing at a little bit bigger scale this year, which is really cool. We really wanna see people growing enough food to provide for themselves and their families, and, surprisingly enough, that's a lot of food, so it takes a lot, so just wanted to, we're not even done with the year, so that's awesome.
If I'm being fun and tough luck to hear like.
Well, actually, that's something, I don't know that you were here for that conversation, but Rachel and I were talking that we should hand out awards. And so like,
Oh, yeah.
obviously the one that grew the most, but we were gonna come up with weird things to give out awards for, so.
Biggest sweet potato.
Yeah. Send in your we should, we said, send in your candidates for,
Yeah. And we need picture references, so,
Next
size of
year.
your head. Yeah, yeah.
that's the only
And it's for
time I've
scale.
grown a 4-pound sweet potato, but,
If somebody could find, like the cost of an average pound of fresh produce and then calculate it using the poundage, that would be really cool. Yeah. How many dollars?
I usually just estimate it around $2 per pound.
Yeah.
I don't really know what.
That's a really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool one. So that would be, yeah, we do got college, that's pretty wild.
When's the last, much too late, wait, cover crops, when's my window?
No, September is actually ideal for cover crops. The mix that we handed out, is daikon radish, pea, crimson clover, and rye. And I think in order for it to fully develop, daikon radish needs to be planted in September, right? But some of the others can go into like October, November. You said you could even plant rye.
The rye will grow in December.
Yeah.
But
So-
you won't get as much of the benefit of it.
I'm trying to let the tomatoes do their last bag.
Yes.
before-
Yeah.
Um, is there anything on the soil?
Soil, plastic.
You've got landscape fabric? Okay, I was gonna say, you could, with things, so like, I've got popcorn drying in the field, so it's probably gonna have to dry for the rest of this month, but I've already seeded the cover crop among it. Yeah. Right, so yeah, if you got the landscape fabric, you don't have to wait, but I mean, I don't know about yours, but this weather has basically killed my tomatoes, so I was gonna rip them up. Yeah, but any cover crop is good. The full benefit is best realized now, and you will be fine.
I mean, I just use straw mulch.
Yeah.
in my mind. So is it okay to just go ahead and plant some of the cover crop where I still have plants actively growing once they're not too?
Yeah,
And then mulch it later or just have to leave the mulch?
I would pull the mulch off for the cover crop, and the cover crop will have the same benefit as the mulch. Yeah, it'll cover the soil.
If you have green tomatoes.
If there's even the faintest hint of color, they will ripen on the counter. Yeah. So you could take, if you're worried about pests, diseases, whatever, as long as they have a hint of color, you can take them out. Just even on the counter. Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of techniques, especially like kind of old fashioned food storage. Keep things going. You can kind of estimate if you want. It's not the biggest deal.
Or maybe it is, if you wanna be the.
Or if you're really gunning for them. Don't
No,
you?
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. No, yeah. I mean, yeah, you can estimate like what's on the vine before you pull your plants or whatever, just because it didn't grow with that and include that for harvesters.
Any other questions?
Do you recommend doing 2 years of the backyard gardening program before doing the market gardening program?
I would probably, yes, recommend it, if you're a fairly new gardener. Just because I think that first year, it can be kind of overwhelming, the amount of information you're learning. And so in like your second year, you might glean more. And especially because your garden changes year to year, you might have different problems the second year that you didn't have the first year. And so kind of being able to learn how to combat that is really nice. And then kind of, if you are still interested in going into market gardening, you can. But it's honestly really up to your comfort level and what you are wanting to take on and whatnot.
What's your fiance's name?
His name's Ben. We've been together for 4 years, so. it's gonna be
Should have
fun.
been a slide.
I know, I should have been like, here's Ben's face. Yeah, he's stoked about this. Yeah, so it was very exciting. We told our parents and they were both like, finally. But no, right, it's very sweet. I will tell him you said that, Arlene. Yes.
For my green beans about it. So is there anything? I mean, I'm sure some of it. I've cleaned them all out. I have planted some new little ones and they're been,
Oh, in that same spot.
no.
Oh. You wanna send me some pictures? And kind of see, it could just be this time of year. And, if it's something if I can identify what it is, possibly finding a variety that disease resistance may help. But it's been a rough year for fungal diseases. Possibly spraying them with the Serenade or copper spray may help keep them alive longer. Yeah.
Does the winter freeze?
Sort of, not in the soil. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan.
So there's not like a antifungal drench. Well,
Not that you wanna use, not that you wanna use on your napalm garden.
okay. Listen, we just want to use that.
I mean, there are ways to fumigate your soil, but you know.
Plant something different.
Crop rotation, cover cropping, you know, if you're having a really bad problem selecting for disease resistant varieties, that kind of thing. Go through it, yeah. Anything that you're gonna do to try to kill fungus in your soil is gonna kill everything else too.
Well, we will see you, hopefully October.
Oh, who is
Thank
this?
you, Susan.
Oh, that's Susan again, yeah.
Zoom.
Fill out surveys.
Yes.
Fill
please
out our
fill out the
survey.
survey. Yes, very important. And, yeah, be in contact with all the other details, the potluck and all that stuff. So.
Thank
See
you,
you
ladies.
guys.